So we are a multi-sector initiative that builds government, business, nonprofit, and consumer collaboration to advance digital inclusion for seniors and adults with disabilities in San Francisco. And the Tech Council was launched in 2015, and its mission is driven by the core belief that the most effective way to address the complexities of connecting all San Franciscans, as well as to harness some opportunities for innovation and partnership, is through collaboration across all sectors. And I like to kind of think that the Tech Council is really the community table around which our member organizations sit for that very purpose. I'm going to pass over to our first speaker, Matt Reiners from Eversound. And Matt, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I appreciate the warm introduction. And I am videoing in from Boston, Massachusetts today. So on the other side of the country. I'm not from here originally, so I don't have the cool accent, but I appreciate you guys hosting us. My goal here, I have a short deck to kind of walk you through. I've got some pictures, videos, some stories to tell. And of course, questions at the end, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll happy to get to them, but I'll jump in here and thanks. So again, everyone, my name is Matt Reiners. I'm one of the co-founders of Eversound, and our mission is to spark meaningful connections. Before we started Eversound, my co-founder Jake and I started another company that was helping people around the country throw silent disco events. Being in San Francisco, I feel like if there's one group of people who might know what a silent disco is, it might be you guys. But for those of you who don't know, imagine a room full of people dancing to no out loud music and everything is being played through wireless headphones. It's probably the most absurd thing you'll ever come across, but people tend to love it. And Jake and I started this company while he was still in college, but then Eversound evolved when two things kind of happened simultaneously. We started receiving phone calls from senior living communities, basically asking for help. What they were saying to us was that hearing was such a big problem in group programs that some people's needed it to be louder, others needed to be softer. There was no happy medium, and this really caused volume wars. So they were looking for a wireless headphone system with individual volume controls designed for groups, would be the perfect setup, which was kind of the silent disco idea. And it was around the same time that I saw what my own grandmother was going through. So she lived in a community, she lived to be 93 in New Jersey. And honestly, her quality of life was pretty poor. She wouldn't go to programs, wouldn't go to events, wouldn't even go to meal times. And when I would try and better understand, the main reason for this, her philosophy was, I can't hear what's going on. Why should I even bother? And she would isolate herself to her room, blast her television, or listen to her romantic fantasy novels through her own headphone system, which was definitely a different side of her because I grew to learn that they were not PG, but hey, God bless grandma's heart on that one. But it was trying to, help people like my grandmother that really knocked us back to kind of take a deeper picture around some of the social isolation that she was facing. And, more and more people are coming out and saying that social isolation will be a greater threat to healthy aging than obesity. I've seen some people compare it to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. And what we believe plays a major role in this social isolation is hearing loss. And what we find is that 80% of people over the age of 85 have some sort of hearing loss. And I think what a lot of people think is if someone can't hear, let's get them a hearing aid. But what the numbers say is that less than 20% of those that could benefit from a hearing aid are actually using one on a consistent basis. Price, quality, usage, stigma, level of care, accessibility, all play a significant role in why this number isn't higher. And it's unfortunate because people way smarter than me have linked hearing loss to all of these negative health outcomes: increased risk in developing dementia, heart disease, kidney disease, mortality, fall risk, diabetes, loneliness. And it was around this time when we started seeing all of this that Jake and I just started walking into senior living communities in upstate New York. And that's where we first came across Jim and Vern. And Jim and Vern lived at a high-end life plan community in Ithaca, New York. And Vern on the right here, Vern Rockcastle, probably one of the coolest names I've ever heard for an individual, retired Cornell professor, 93 years old, lived in independent living, wore hearing aids, but used our headphones at the time to listen in on a resident council meeting. And he came up to us afterwards and basically said that it was the first time in those 7 years since attending that event that he could hear every single word. And he thanked us. And after probably walking into another 100 communities having very similar experiences, we thought we could create a company and do some good around it. So that's when we noticed in the industry that there was no one that really created a system that was tailor-made to an older adult user. So we created a system from scratch that's really designed for this older adult user. And what does that even mean? So they're hearing aid compatible, antimicrobial materials, doesn't need Wi-Fi or cellular reception. And they have a transmitter that you can basically plug in any audio source, and they're not to scale because I've got it right here, but you can plug in on one side AV systems, TVs, computers, laptops, anything with an audio out. And then on the back, there's a microphone in. So we have a lot of people that are using it for like fitness classes or meditation, because whatever's plugged into the transmitter will then be broadcasted to each headphone individually. And then each headphone, you can turn it up or turn it down. So it's amplifying what people should be listening to at a level comfortable to them. And one of the nice functions about this is the operating range, which is 200 feet from the transmitter. So you're looking almost short of a football field in terms of direction. So we have communities really practicing this idea of staying physically distanced while staying socially connected. And I want to play this quick video here for you. It's an innovation, just kind of showcasing where people are using Eversound today.
Connect residents with their community, whether they're together or up to 300 feet apart, with the Eversound wireless listening system. It can connect with any audio source and a microphone to transmit that sound to all of your Eversound headphones simultaneously to create meaningful moments of connection. Use the Eversound system to enhance group programming, like recorded programs, live performances, or exercise, even while maintaining safe distances. But that's not all. Empower residents to take the lead or engage in small group programming, including resident-led book clubs, resident council meetings, and creative games. Provide better communication in one-to-one settings during care planning meetings and physical therapy sessions, even telehealth appointments. Keep residents and families connected with clear two-way communication, in person and virtually, while also keeping them connected to their communities in other ways. And lastly, stand out to families and guests by showing your commitment to care. Enhance tours by using Eversound to improve tour participation, allowing prospective residents and their family to communicate and engage easily. Amplify your community's resident engagement with the flexible Eversound listening system. Talk to an Eversound resident impact advisor about these and other ideas.
And so they kind of showcase a few ways that people are using Eversound today. Residents. We do not need to watch it again. But I just want to highlight it as well, because what's the nice thing about Eversound, it really enhances things that are already happening in a community today. So communication with staff, family visits. You can see in the top left here, a lot of people started using it to facilitate some of these window visits during COVID. But we also have people using it for resident council meetings, religious services, live stream and recorded events, PT and OT, prospect tours, bingo, exercise, scenic rides, music, meditation, movie, sundowning, entertainers. It's really, the possibilities are endless, and it really speaks to the creativity and the resiliency of communities and how they're using Eversound successfully today. And I want to kind of give some snippets here of people actually using the product and some of their feedback.
If you guys can hear me, put a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, let's go. Yeah, let's go.
How are you liking it, B?
Oh, I love it.
I can hear everything.
That's from me. You're a lovely daughter. What else can you read?
Everything. You're the best.
And we call these our ever moments, and we define an ever moment of the ability to re-engage with the world around us through sound. And just a few of other examples I want to highlight here in terms of these ever moments and where other people are using them. So one of our partners here is using it for a tour on the bus where it can be definitely noisy and loud. So this allows them to give instructions when they're going to view more scenic places. On the top here, we had a community using it for an outdoor movie. on the bottom here. Such a simple concept, but so powerful. The lady on the right, sight isn't the best, hearing isn't the best. So they used Eversound so the administrator could read off what she was actually signing. And then on the right here, we had one of our partners doing a virtual trip to the Netherlands, complete with Heineken and stroopwafels. So definitely a program I can get behind, but then they used the Eversound to really have a better audio experience so people could actually hear what is going on. In addition to the headphones, the other ways that we work with communities is to help save time and for the life enrichment and activities folk. We have hundreds of ready to go therapeutic and recreational programs, monthly calendars with theme programs and activity inspiration. You can really filter them based on the personalized needs of the residents. In addition to these packages, we also have live events where we basically partner with museums, aquariums, zoos, and different musical acts across the country, where you can kind of think of this as a virtual field trip that you can stream directly into your community, and you can actually engage with the host in real time. And then on top of this, we also have on-demand videos where you can kind of think of this as like the Netflix and YouTube of senior living, where there's like no ads. It's really customized to catered content, really designed for older adults. And it's actually got some really, really cool things in there. We actually have a 2-week free trial going of this. So if you guys want any more feedback on that, definitely check it out. And I'll have contact information at the end. In terms of outcomes, so I think Front Porch did a really awesome long study. They did a 12-month study with over 600 users and using Eversound, and they're using it for independent living, assisted living, and memory care. And I think their statistics kind of speak for itself. 77% improved understanding of the event, a 77% increase in resident engagement, and a 64% improved mood in those living with dementia. And when you get to the concept of it, right, just the ability to hear is where we start to see these really positive things coming out of. And then in terms of other ways we see communities using it, is really as a tool to build census. I know that is a top of mind for a lot of senior living providers today, but we have more and more people using it on tours, using it as a tool to differentiate, and then using it as a tool in terms of messaging to promote safe visits and programs so everyone can stay connected. In terms of our footprint, so we work with over 1,000 senior living communities in all 50 states. I tried to highlight the San Francisco area here. So there's no one directly in San Francisco, but there's some Oakmont Senior Living, Carlton Senior Living, New Gen Healthcare, and Silverado communities that we currently impact. But we have over 1,000 communities in all 50 states. And based in Boston, you can see their main footprint is over here. But I want to kind of sum this up by just sharing a story from one of our partners. I think this really speaks to the ever moments that we're helping communities to provide. And I'll let Chris do the talking here.
I'd really just love to share a feel-good story about the visitation package that Eversound uses, and something had happened at one of our communities. So we had a resident who lives in one of our communities who is close to end-stage dementia. And, she hasn't had, visits over the past, even before the pandemic, haven't been overly functional because she wasn't able to, really communicate and respond. And so after the pandemic started and the family started to come visit her, one day they decided to put the Eversound system on her so that she could hear the conversation of what her family was saying to her. And the resident actually spoke back to her family. And it's one of those feelings that if that doesn't give you goosebumps or chills, nothing will. Like, what an impactful moment for everybody involved, that she was able to hear her family talking with her and she was actually able to respond. So it truly is a wonderful, wonderful program.
And, just putting yourself in those shoes, right? The patriarch, the matriarch of your family, who's thought to be nonverbal, and then use a simple piece of technology to really help facilitate that conversation. And it's almost every other day we hear stories like this of families reuniting, residents reuniting with the staff, to really drive these positive moments home. And that's, why we're here, is to really help partner with some of these organizations and really help improve that. And so again, I'm Matt with Eversound. Our whole mission is to spark meaningful connections with some of these ever moments. Feel free to get in touch with me if you want, and happy to answer any questions that might have came in.
Great. Well, thank you, Matt. A totally fascinating kind of solution that you have, to, let's call it an age-old problem. And like one of the questions I think a lot of people would be interested in is, the cost of the system. And, given that in San Francisco, you don't have a footprint, what would be some of the ways that you move forward with interested parties, et cetera?
Yeah. So the way that we typically work with interested parties, so we do have like a 30-day happiness guarantee, which kind of acts as a paid trial. Eversound is a membership. And the nice thing that's with that, anything becomes damaged or breaks, we do replace that. No questions asked. We hear crazy stories of things getting dropped in toilets. We actually heard of a system getting urinated on the other day, unfortunately. But the packages range depending on how many headphones and how much systems people would need. Our lowest package starts at $170 per month and then scales up from there.
So that's like $170 per user then, correct?
No. So $170. So typically it's not charged per user.
Okay.
So the $170 package would be 4 headphones, 2 transmitters. What we typically see is a community, and then like our group package, which is 10 headphones and 1 transmitter, that starts at $200 per month. But we usually find communities will get a set of 10 based on the levels of care that they have. They're not getting a headphone for every single person in the community. If someone wants to do that, I'll say you probably don't need that many, but I wouldn't stop you if that's what if their heart desired.
Okay, very good. And we have another question about the 300-foot radius that you mentioned. The question is, what did that relate to?
Yeah, great question. So I'll stop sharing here so I can actually just kind of show you this. So this is the transmitter. So basically, this is like the brains of the system. So whatever you plug into here, that will be broadcasted out 300 feet. So 250 to 300 feet. So you can plug really anything in here. If people use it for like audiobooks, music. So you can be up to 250, 300 feet from the base system here with the wireless headphones in order to hear what's going on. I hope that answered your question.
It did for me, so thank you. And just like at scale, where are you now? You had a lot of kind of pins across the map of the US. How many users would you say that you currently have?
Yeah, so I would say we've got upwards of 1,100 current Eversound member communities. And we've been around since ideation about like 5 years ago or so. So really had decent product in the field about 4 years ago. And as you can tell, like with Chris's comment, they see the positive impact and then go from there. So yeah, we're in Alaska and Hawaii as well. So it's I'm looking for a reason to go to Hawaii. So I'm trying to get that worked out.
Okay, very good. And last question, Carla are you using new technology, or is this kind of off the shelf kind of existing technology?
Yeah. Great question. So I would say it's a little bit of both. So the technology itself, it's not Bluetooth, but it's DECT, digitally enhanced cordless technology, where you can kind of compare that to like an old cordless phone. But where we're using it, and our CTO gets all the credit. I'm not the brains behind the technology, but he's a gentleman in his early 70s, Kostas Papadopoulos, genius. He's the type of person that can explain things to me that I understand it. But we adopted this DECT technology because we found that you can have more than one-to-one connection. So you can have up to 120 headphones to one transmitter. And then the range, rather than 10 to 15 feet with Bluetooth, or maybe a little bit more than that, that's where we get the 250 to 300. So this the system is proprietary in terms of like not the DECT side, but the Eversound system. We've built that from scratch with some other technology in there, of course.
Okay, great. And just last point is a question of clarification. So should a resident be in their room upstairs, for example, they'd still be within that transmission range, like to kind of be able to participate in any group or listening activities?
Yeah, so yes, we do find in each community whatever's in the wall that might impact the range a little bit. But we have seen communities, especially during the pandemic. I think one of the more creative use cases I saw, a community did call light bingo, where I know we can never take bingo away, but people were stuck in their rooms, but they were able to bring the headphones to them so they could actually hear the numbers. And when they won bingo, they would hit their nurse call button. So it's just kind of, and it speaks to the resiliency and the creativity of the people in the communities and adapting it for their use. But we see a lot of people using it now for like hallway events, really spacing people out. I've even seen situations where they'll have something going on inside and then they'll be able to have an outside listening area as well. So it really helps to spread things out rather than keeping it all in one spot.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. This